As my story begins, at the age of 19, I was a mildly successful dancing teacher and continued in this static state for almost 5 years. At the end of this time, I met a young lady who talked me into attending your lectures. My thought, upon hearing you say, imagining creates reality, was that the entire idea was ridiculous. However, I decided to accept your challenge and disprove your thesis. I bought your book Out of This World and read it many times. Still unconvinced, I set myself a rather ambitious goal. My present position was as an instructor with the Arthur Murray Dance Studio, and my goal was to own a franchise and be the boss of an Arthur Murray studio myself. This seemed like the most unlikely thing in the world, as franchises were extremely difficult to secure, but on top of this fact, I was completely without the necessary funds to begin such an operation. Nevertheless, I assumed the feeling of my wish fulfilled as night after night in my imagination, I went to sleep managing my own studio. 3 weeks later, 3 weeks, that's 21 days. 3 weeks later, a friend of mine from Reno, Nevada, 3 weeks later, a friend called from Reno, Nevada. He had the Murray studio there and said it was too much for him to cope with alone. He offered me a partnership and I was delighted. So delighted, in fact, that I hastened to Reno on borrowed money and promptly forgot all about you and your story of imagination. My partner and I worked hard and were very successful, but after a year, I was still not satisfied. I wanted more. I began thinking of ways and means to get another studio. All my efforts failed. One night as I retired, I was restless and decided to read. As I looked through my collection of books, I noticed your slender volume Out of This World. I thought of the silly nonsense I had gone through 1 year ago before getting my own studio. Getting my own studio! The words in my mind electrified me. I reread the book that night, and later in my imagination, I heard my superior praise the good job we had done in Reno and suggest we acquire a second studio, as he had a second location ready for us if we desired to expand. I reenacted this imaginal scene nightly without fail. Nightly without fail. Continuous. Don't just do it once. Don't just do it twice. Do it persistently. Consistently. 3 weeks from the first night of my imaginal drama, it materialized. 3 weeks, 21 days. How long would you take practicing this while you fall asleep? Would you take 3 weeks? 3 weeks from the first night of my imaginal drama, it materialized almost word for word. My partner accepted the new studio in Bakersfield, and I had the Reno studio alone. Excuse me. Now, I was convinced of the truth of your teaching, and never again will I forget. Now, I wanted to share this wonderful knowledge of imaginal power with my staff. I tried to tell them of the marvels they could accomplish, but I was unable to reach many, although one fantastic incident resulted from my efforts to tell this story. A young teacher told me he believed my story, but said it would have probably happened anyway in time. He insisted the entire theory was nonsense, but stated that if I could tell him something of an incredible nature that would actually happen and which he could witness, then he would believe. I accepted his challenge and conceived a truly fantastic test. The Reno studio is the most insignificant in the entire Murray, The Reno studio is the most insignificant in the entire Murray system because of all the small population county in the city itself. I must read again. The Reno studio is the most insignificant in the entire Murray system because of the small population count in the city itself. There are over 300 Murray studios in the country with much larger populations, therefore providing a greater possibilities to draw from. So my test was this. I told the teacher that within the next 3 months, at the time of a national dance convention, the little Reno studio would be the foremost topic of conversation at that convention. He calmly stated this was quite impossible. That night when I retired, I felt myself standing before a tremendous audience. I was speaking on creative imagining and felt the nervousness of being before such a vast audience. But I also felt the wonderful sensation of audience acceptance. I heard the roar of applause, and as I left the stage, I saw Mr. Murray himself come forward and shake my hand. I reenacted this entire drama night after night. It began to take on the tones of reality, and I knew I had done it again. Once it takes on those tones of reality, once it takes on that naturalness, that feeling of, it's just like, it's as if you were just remembering the day you just experienced. That's the natural tone. It's in your memory as silky and smooth as it is. What you just experienced is a memory, silky and smooth. My imaginal drama materialized down to the last detail. My little Reno studio was the talk of the convention, and I did appear on that stage just as I had done in my imagination. But even after this unbelievable but actual happening, the young teacher who threw me the challenge remained unconvinced. He said it all had happened too naturally, and he was sure it would have happened anyway. I did not mind his attitude because his challenge had given me another opportunity to prove, at least to myself, that imagining does create reality. From that time on, I continued with my ambition to own the largest Arthur Murray dance studio in the world. Night after night, in my imagination, I heard myself accepting a studio franchise for a great city. For a great city. Within 3 weeks. 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks. Mr. Murray called me and offered a studio in a city of 1.5 million people. It is now my goal to make my studio the greatest and biggest in the entire system. And of course, I know it will be done through my imagination. E.O.L. Jr. The first 2 videos I saw on Neville Goddard was January 1st, 2022. And they were of this man who wrote this testimonial. Elmer O. Locker Jr., I believe is his name. The grandfather of the man who runs the channel, David. I don't know his last name. But he didn't have his name out. The channel's always been under Elmer Locker. But when I saw these 2 videos of this testimonial, and when I first came from nowhere of Neville and saw him speaking and what the subject was in those first 2 videos on that channel, which I highly recommend you watch, especially if you're new to this. When I saw those 2 videos, those woke me up. Those 2 videos, I watched them back to back. They woke me up and snapped me out of something. And it was another story how I even got to those, how I even knew what to type into YouTube to find those 2 videos. That's a whole other story. I'll break that down later. But this man now was, I guess maybe in his 70s or 80s in these 2 videos. They're about 10 years old, I guess, from 2025 now. 10 or 11 years old. On that channel, I think they're 10 years from when they were posted. When something grabs a hold of you and says, there's something here, you need to follow. It's like follow the white rabbit, right? Follow the white rabbit in the Matrix. So it's exactly what I did. I just followed, and I knew something was right. And then I did the ladder exercise, what he said in the video about the ladder, and I did that right away. I did it that morning. It was 5 a.m. when I saw the videos. I was on a ladder by 9 o'clock that same morning. And now I didn't need any more proof of anything by anybody. There was a man who had studied with Neville, and that's all I needed to know first, and then to try it myself within only a handful of hours. I was already on a ladder. Do I need to be more convinced? I had already at that point spent 30 years in this field of you create your own reality. Steeped heavily in this field, teaching this field, but not really mastering it to this one last degree until I saw those 2 videos, and then I knew this was the right path, the right answer. There was something I was missing, and now I could say wonderfully that I have arrived. It is wonderful to be here. It wasn't easy, but this guy right here, Elmer O. Locker Jr., the grandfather of the current YouTube channel, this guy and his testimonial is on YouTube is what really sold it for me. What really convinced me of Neville thoroughly. I don't know if I would have found anything else. I'm just glad I found those 2 videos. There was maybe about on that channel, there might have been a couple dozen more videos, maybe 20 or 30 more videos at that point. This is how far back that is. Maybe there was more. It didn't seem like a lot though. But anyway, great testimonial. Wonderful.